The rain that night wasn't just rain. It felt like the world was splitting wide open, and if you ask me, nothing ever really goes back to normal after a storm like that. Caleb Harper slammed through his barn doors, half mad at the leaking roof, boots drowning in mud, only to find his whole world upended by a girl no older than 20 curled up in the hay, soaked, shivering, out cold. Her hair was stuck to her cheeks, blood on her temple. Hoodie ripped to hell, but what really knocked the air out of Caleb's lungs was recognizing her face from the news. Samantha Blake, the missing girl, senator's daughter. Plastered across every gas station TV for 3 straight days. You ever have one of those moments where your life just forks off in a way you never saw coming? Yeah, that happened. There she was, looking like a ghost, and all Caleb could think was, why my barn? Why me? He stepped closer, careful, the wind tearing at the doors, his flashlight wobbling in his grip. He thought maybe she'd bolt. Instead, she just watched him with eyes big as a deer's, waiting to see if he'd turn her in or help. He wrapped her in the old emergency blanket he kept for cold nights and tried to sound gentle. You're safe here, okay? I'm Caleb. No response, just this raw fear you could almost taste in the air. Only later, as she started to thaw out, did he realize the depth of it. Not just a scared kid. This was someone running from something worse than a headline. And when she finally whispered, "Please don't tell them I'm here," Caleb knew he wasn't dealing with just a missing person. He was staring down the barrel of something darker. He could have called the cops, handed her over, wiped his hands clean. But he'd seen pain before, served with guys who jumped at loud noises and couldn't talk about what they'd seen. He knew trauma. So, he decided, right then, she'd get a bed of hay, hot water with lemon, the little comfort he could muster, and as much silence as she needed. He watched her hug the blanket tight, shaking, saying almost nothing. But then the storm outside started to feel small compared to the storm she carried with her. You know they're looking for you? Caleb asked quietly. Samantha's eyes went dark. Her voice so thin it almost disappeared. They're not looking for me. They're looking for a story. That line hit Caleb sideways. He'd seen that before, when suffering turns into headlines. And no one really wants the truth, just a spectacle. Let me back up a sec. Her dad, Senator Blake, wasn't just some local big shot. He was a man with a smile that never reached his eyes. The type of power that could make problems disappear. Samantha started talking, voice brittle, hands clenched on the mug. I didn't run away, she whispered. I escaped. She told him about the night of the gala, how her father wanted her to play perfect, wear the blue dress, smile for the cameras, act controllable. When she said no, he locked her in a room, made her a prisoner in her own house. She described slipping past the alarm, running barefoot through a ravine. The storm nearly killing her before Caleb's barn light showed up like a last-chance miracle. And here's where things spun sideways. Caleb knew that hiding her was trouble. But something about her story, about the way she talked about her father and the people paid to keep secrets, made his blood run cold. He offered her a bed in the house. She refused, terrified someone might see her, so he let her stay in the barn, kept watch all night, shotgun across his knees. Old army buddy turned PI in New York. I need help, he said. You're harboring the senator's girl. Logan guessed. Not harboring, Caleb said. Protecting. And you know what? That made all the difference. The next morning, Samantha sat in the sunlight, the barn suddenly small with the weight of what she'd said. If I speak, she told Caleb, I destroy him. He'll destroy me back. Caleb just shrugged. Maybe he deserves to be destroyed. And that's when she finally cried, not loud, but the kind of silent sobbing that only comes from carrying too much for too long. Days passed. Logan dug up old records, sealed court cases, whispers of abuse, staff who vanished after speaking out. You're right, Caleb. This goes deep. Journalists tried. One's been missing 5 years. There's money, threats, cover-ups. The news still called Samantha a kidnapping victim. The senator called press conferences, played the grieving father, but the truth was closing in. One night, a black SUV rolled by, dropping a threat on Caleb's porch. "Return what's mine, or we take everything." That's when Caleb's war instinct kicked in. He'd fought in places with no mercy, seen men lie and die for less. He wasn't about to fold now. He moved Samantha to a crawl space under the old root cellar. "You'll be safe," he promised. She looked at him, really looked, and asked, "Why are you doing this?" Caleb said, "I'm not protecting a senator's daughter. I'm protecting a kid who was brave enough to run from hell." She hugged him. Unexpected, fierce, and it nearly broke him how much she needed that kindness. Then came the breaking point. Logan arrived with a satellite broadcast rig. They set up in the barn. No makeup, no script, just Samantha, raw and real. "My name is Samantha Blake. I was never kidnapped. I was imprisoned. My father did it. I ran." Her voice shook, but she laid it all bare. Locked rooms, bruises, the night she escaped, and the farmer who saved her. By sundown, the video exploded. 10 million views, hashtags everywhere. The world finally seeing what the news never dared report. The next day, Senator Blake's world crumbled live on TV, reporters grilling him. Old abuse records surfacing, his campaign manager talking to feds. 2 days later, the FBI came, not to arrest Samantha, but to thank her. Her testimony broke open a decade of corruption, bribery, cover-ups, even ties to girls who vanished. Caleb stood with her as she watched her father's arrest. She didn't cheer or cry, just whispered, "I never thought I'd be free." Caleb told her, "You are now, and you're never going back." 3 months later, Caleb's barn was quiet again. Samantha was gone, but not lost. She was in D.C., not as the senator's daughter, but as an advocate, fighting for girls like her. Caleb still woke before sunrise, still drank bad coffee, but on his fridge was a new photo. Samantha, strong, holding a mic. Under the caption, "You don't have to be born brave. You just have to choose it once." So, let me ask you, when justice and truth collide with power, whose side do you pick? Drop your thoughts below. Who do you believe? What would you have done? This isn't just about one girl. It's about all the stories buried by people too scared to let the light in. Let's talk about it. Right here, right now. 3 months isn't a long time in the life of a small-town farmer, but when everything around you's been turned upside down, it sure feels like the world spins faster, like every sunrise is asking you, "So what now, Harper?" I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I still wake up before the light cracks the horizon, half expecting to find that barn door hanging open, Samantha's footprints in the dew, her shadow at the edge of the corn. But life doesn't freeze for anybody, not for lost girls, not for stubborn old men like me. Word about what happened to Samantha didn't just die down. If anything, it spread wider, louder, burning up the news for weeks until folks got tired of hearing about broken families, about senators gone bad. DC can chew up even the biggest stories, spit them out, move on to the next crisis of the week. But around here, people remember. They remember the night the FBI rolled down County Road 9, the day the senator was led away in handcuffs, the evening the church bells rang, not for celebration, but for something like relief. You know, the thing nobody tells you about being part of a story like this is how quick the world wants to box you up. Hero, villain, victim, accomplice. But real life, it's messy, eh? My neighbors started treating me different. Some brought casseroles and pie, like I'd just won a medal. Others looked away at the feed store, whispering about that Harper boy hiding fugitives. And the truth is, I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just did what I hoped someone would do for my own kin, if it ever came to that. But for Samantha, the story was just starting. She called once a week, usually late at night, her voice stronger each time. "You wouldn't believe the stuff I see up here, Caleb," she'd say, and I'd laugh, telling her, "Try me." One call. She was fresh from a congressional hearing, nerves rattling, saying, "These people, they talk a big game, but most of them would sell their own shadow for another term." Another night. Her voice was shaky again. "There are days I miss your barn, Caleb. Even the smell of wet hay." I tell her, "There's always a spot for you, kiddo. Barn's quieter these days. But there's plenty of room." What she didn't say, what I could hear behind the words, was that the world hadn't forgiven her for speaking out. Sure, online she had fans, hashtags, people calling her brave. But power doesn't vanish overnight. The senator's friends still whispered about mental illness, about unstable daughters making up stories. One day, she told me, "You know, Caleb, the only thing scarier than running away is being believed by the wrong people. Some want to turn me into a symbol. Others want me to disappear." She let out this tired laugh. "I guess I'm just trying to be. Samantha, not a hashtag." Let me back up a sec. One night, late fall, just before the frost came in, a car I didn't recognize rolled down my driveway. Black sedan. Tinted windows, the whole 9 yards. My gut tightened, old instincts kicking in. Out stepped a woman in her 40s, sharp suit, the kind you see in legal dramas. She introduced herself as Linda Chun, federal prosecutor. "Mr. Harper, I'm not here to make trouble," she said, flashing a badge. "But you and Miss Blake, you shook up a hornet's nest." We sat at my kitchen table, coffee steaming between us. She told me, "We're building cases not just against Blake, but half a dozen men who thought their money could bury anything." She paused. "Eyes steady. You did the right thing. But you need to be careful. These men, they don't lose gracefully." That's when it hit me. Samantha's fight wasn't over. It just moved to a bigger ring. Some days, she'd call sounding strong, telling me about schools she visited, girls who'd press notes into her hand, thanking her for giving them hope. Other nights, she'd whisper about threats, about online mobs, about how even good people turned cold when the stakes got high. "Why do they hate me so much, Caleb?" she asked one time, voice small again. "Because you broke the story." I said, "Because you didn't stay quiet." That silence on the line, it cut deeper than any words. You ever wonder what justice really means? Out here, where lines blur and the truth's got sharp edges, folks started debating at the diner. Was it right for her to air family secrets, ruin a man's career, maybe destroy a whole legacy? Some said yes. Others said she should have kept her head down, let things blow over. "It's family business," one old-timer grumbled. I bit my tongue, thinking, if that's family, maybe the world needs a little less of it. Twist is, the senator's trial turned into a circus. Media trucks, protesters, bodyguards. Every ugly detail spilled out under oath. Turns out, Samantha wasn't the only victim. Her testimony cracked open years of silence. Nannies, aides, other kids came forward, stories overlapping like bruises on bruises. The prosecutor, Linda, called me one afternoon, thanking me again. "You changed things, Mr. Harper. Not many folks would have risked it." I didn't feel like a hero. I just kept thinking about Samantha, about the quiet courage it took to show her scars to the world. But you want to know the real twist? It wasn't the trial, or the headlines, or even the senator's sentencing. 10 years, no parole. It was what happened after. One morning, as I was fixing a fence, a little girl from up the road rode her bike past, stopped, and said, "You're the man who helped that girl, right?" I nodded, not sure what to say. She grinned, missing 2 front teeth. "My mama says you're a good man. I want to be brave too." That stuck with me, more than all the news stories combined. As winter set in, Samantha's calls came less often, busy with speaking, organizing, living, I guess. The barn stayed quiet, but some nights, when the wind howled just right, I'd swear I could hear her voice echoing back, not scared anymore, but certain. On Christmas, a package arrived. Inside was a framed photo, Samantha on the Capitol steps, surrounded by girls and young women, the same navy blue blazer, a look in her eyes that said she finally belonged to herself. There was a note, written in her chicken scratch. For the man who gave me shelter. Keep fighting for the next one, Caleb. So, that's where the story sits now, not with a neat bow, but with a door left half open. Justice, truth, family, none of it's simple. Maybe that's the point. Maybe all we can do is keep listening, keep believing, and when the next lost soul knocks at our door, do the right thing even if it costs us. So, tell me, what would you have done? Do you think justice was served? Or did Samantha go too far, tearing down the walls her father built? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear your side. Maybe, just maybe, the real story is only beginning.